women represented less than 30% of the workforce. By 1980, we made up more than half of it, and by 2014, it was 57%. Although this rate is predicted to slow markedly, the Great Recession required many more women to find jobs in order to pay their families' bills. Not only are more women working outside the home, wives in dual-earner couples are contributing a greater share of the couple's total earnings, 40% in 2011, up from 38% in 2006. And more wives in 2011 were out-earning their husbands. When both partners bring home the bacon, or the free-range chicken, decision-making, child-rearing, and domestic tasks tend to be shared more equally. Men are doing more of the housework than they did when this book came out, and spending more time caring for children, though still only about half as much as moms do. Parental leave continues to be cast as a women's issue instead of a family issue, although this should change as fatherhood becomes more integral to more men's identities and paternal leave as common as maternal leave. In other words, we're on the right track, but still a long way from the gender equality in domestic life. We're still a long way from gender equality outside the home, too. A woman's access to safe and legal abortion remains in jeopardy. The glass ceiling remains firmly in place. The wage gap kicks in at a shocking age, 32, and remains stubbornly persistent. In 1992, women working full-time, year-round, were typically paid 72 cents for every dollar paid to their male counterparts. Almost a quarter of a century later, in 2015, women still made only 80 cents for every dollar earned by men. The effects mount up over time. The Institute for Women's Policy Research estimates that the wage gap costs a college-educated woman almost $800,000 by the time she turns 59. The gender pay gap is worse for mothers. Men's wages continue to go up when they become dads. Women's wages go down when they become moms. The long-term consequences for women's health, autonomy, and well-being are devastating and are hugely responsible for the fact that the subtitle of this book continues to surprise. What about the long-term trends in place at the end of the 20th century? Later marriage, fewer children, more divorce, more remarriage. Are they still trending? Mainly yes, partly no. The average age at which both men and women first marry has continued to inch upward, 27 for women and 29 for men, giving people more time to get to know themselves and to figure out what they want in a partner, at least in theory. More people now delay marriage, waiting until their 30s or 40s. Waiting to marry until one's early 30s used to raise the chance of divorce. Now it lowers it. That's partly because so many people now live together before getting hitched, which means that many relationships end in breakups rather than actual divorces, or never lead to marriage at all. The stigma of illegitimacy has largely disappeared, mercifully taking the shotgun marriage along with it, never a solid foundation for life partnership. Americans are having fewer kids and citing the rising cost of child-rearing as the main reason. The statistic that kicked off this whole project, that 2/3 of divorces are initiated by women, which took me completely by surprise, is holding steady. Divorce rates peaked in the 1970s and 1980s and have been declining, with those who married in the 2000s divorcing at even lower rates so far, although the rate of gray divorce, over the age of 50 that is, has doubled since 1990. If current trends continue, nearly 2/3 of marriages will never involve a divorce. That says nothing, however, about your particular circumstances or reasons for picking up this book, and it's only true of part of the population. While divorce rates have mainly declined for college-educated couples, working-class couples are more likely to split up at near-peak levels. Quote, better-educated Americans have found a new marriage model in which both spouses work and they build a strong economic foundation for their marriage, unquote, explained sociologist Andrew Cherlin, author of Love's Labor Lost, The Rise and Fall of the Working-Class Family in America. The erosion of the middle class, on the other hand, has left many of the less educated struggling to find work and more vulnerable to splitting up during economic hardship. Serial transitions in and out of long-term relationships are now typical of family life in the United States, which made stepfamilies more common. Approximately 1/3 of all weddings in America today create stepfamilies. More than 4 in 10 American adults have one step relative in their family, either a step-parent, a step or half-sibling, or a stepchild.